You ready, Cordy?
This is the way it was. February 18th, 1992. I'm off by a day, aren't I?
Specimen, of course, was my final U of A project, final college film I ever made. It was supposed to be a big production. It was supposed to surpass Arizona Smith in terms of production values, and I had been planning on it for about 2 or 3 years as my final film. Even at one point, I was going to do it in film and spend some money on it, because when I went to the film classes and saw some of the other final projects, there were some big ones that people had spent some money on. So I always envisioned Specimen to be my big swan song at the U of A. It didn't turn out quite that way, and it's been completely forgotten about in many ways. Specimen is sort of one of my forgotten films, if you will. People that know me and my friends and family know all about Contamination and Arizona Smith very well. Specimen is really kind of a forgotten film, and the reason is, I shot it during my final 6 months at U of A, then I graduated from college, and we had a little premiere party, of course, and then literally a couple of weeks later I took off to LA to do the whole LA thing. And then the film was just shelved and put into a box and forgotten all about. Many people never even saw it, and it's literally probably my most forgotten project I've ever done, which is sad. I think it's a really pretty good movie. It's really one of my favorites, with the advent of digital editing and revisiting the project, digging in and out of the archives, and re-editing it with a whole new music score. It's now one of my favorite films. I think it's one of my best. The music score that I've put into it now is much more subtle, and it seems to go much more with it, as if it was written for the film.
Bachelors of Art. It may be. I see the tape spinning.
I remember breaking at least one window. I don't remember if it was Todd or what, but one of those scenes when we were crawling in, I think Todd banged his leg on the window and broke it. Hopefully no one from the church is listening at this time. I remember the running. I remember the dolly cam. I remember running up and down stairs holding a camera in front of me. I remember Steve Cordy getting injected with a green or blue or red liquid by Onday, wearing white smocks. I remember a VCR being thrown, and I remember the funny guy who was the pornography artist who was Onday's assistant mad scientist.
I started writing Specimen right after Arizona Smith. And Arizona Smith was wonderful, and I loved it, but I really wanted to go from there into something more serious again. I felt like once I had such success with that kind of broad comedy, that I could do something with the type of suspense you find in Alien or Terminator, something where something is just chasing you, something that's relentless. You can't stop it, and you can't escape. So I really set out to make that kind of film. I went through a lot of iterations, a lot of script ideas, and even Brad wrote one version, which I didn't really go for. Again, he was making it more of a parody, and I didn't want to go in that direction at all.
28 minutes. Stand right here and hand this to me now.
There's been a few deaths since this movie, and and the people that were in it. Of course, the dog, whose name I can't say in case there's kids listening. The dog's character's name, of course, was Tilly, which was based on Pete's parents' dog, beloved dog from the 80s.
Tell me when you got her.
Come on.
And then let go of her. Okay, stand up so maybe she'll... Wanna go on a car ride? Car ride? Wanna go on a car ride? Come on, car ride? Car ride?
Yeah, that dog died, and I don't think we ever found out why. I'm not sure if she was poisoned or something. Roger might know more than I do. So that was sad. And of course, Steve passed away only a couple of years after Specimen was made. And I barely knew him. I never got the chance to know him. I wish I did. Adam tells me he's got a brother and, of course, a family. who have maybe never seen this. So I'm really going to be thrilled to send this to his family to see. They may not know it exists. They may have never seen it. They may not even have really any footage of Steve, and now they will. So this might be a little priceless little project that they'll have in their hands.
Yo, dude.
Well, what happened was my brother and Steve worked together in the early 80s at First Cafeteria, and they were good friends. And then when I worked at First Cafeteria, probably up until like 1987 or 1988, I worked with Steve there too. He was the school teacher there, and you know, he used to work at First a little, probably just so he could eat unlimited food. But I think he was a perfect Frankenstein monster in that movie. Yeah, he passed away, and it was pretty sad, and it was pretty sad. But he was a school teacher, and he used to always show that movie to his class in the Tucson Unified School District. Yeah, we visited him maybe 6 months to a year before he passed away, and when me and Beth still lived in Arizona, we sort of knew he was ill, so it wasn't a big surprise. He actually did die of HIV. And when you think about now, with all the treatments, I mean, Magic Johnson wasn't diagnosed with HIV until at least, I would say, 91 or probably 1991. And look, he's still alive, probably hasn't had a cold. But, you know, when Steve was diagnosed, he was just a few years away probably from the advent of all these new medications that saved people. 95, but, you know, he actually, you know, had HIV during the filming of that movie. No, I don't know if I knew at the time that he did, but he did.
Say, I'll be back.
I'll be back for you.
And I have to push
No,
the
it's your Arnold Schwarzenegger accent.
I'll be back for you.
And now, of course, Andy died also from cancer, you know, what, 9 years ago now? It's Specimen kind of represents a really wonderful time in my life when I was in college and social and having a great time and hadn't really worked or entered the real world yet and found out what what kind of a real world it is when you start working in it. You know, Andy, you know, his health was starting to just deteriorate at this time around 1992. He had a lot of leg problems and vein problems, and you know, he just gave it his all. You know, his running up and down the stairs, well, you know, that was hard on him. He had a hard time, but he just did it and he didn't complain. You know, Andy never let pain bother him, and he was in a lot of pain a lot. You know, Specimen was shot in '92, and Andy died a mere 8 years later, at the end of 2000. So I'm really thrilled that he was able to make one big final movie, and it's his biggest role. People remember Andy, of course, as the evil priest in Arizona Smith, or they remember him as the guy in Contamination doing the whole puking stuff.
Don't drink the water!
And of course his line, "Don't drink the water," is Andy's big famous line. But Specimen was his biggest performance. I think it's his best, and you know, his lines and his whole, he was just so, you know, sort of evil, and is a major force in the movie. His performance is just downright scary to watch, I think. And it's one of my favorite performances of any of my movies that I've ever made, is Andy's performance in Specimen. You know, it's just, it wasn't at all what I had in mind. It wasn't the way the script was written. I think I mentioned in the commentary that, you know, he was supposed to be more of an evil doctor type, you know, with hair sticking up like in Back to the Future, you know, the guy in that movie. And just sort of be almost the comic relief. Well, Andy took it almost the exact opposite, and his performance in all of his scenes, he's very strong and scary. And of course, when he, you know, Adam didn't know him that well, and Todd, of course, did from working with him in other films. But I was always wondering what, you know, when he did that scene where he tied the guys up and he's yelling at them and shoving them and really roughing them up, we didn't rehearse that. We just did it. And when he did it, which is in the movie, as it is, none of us expected it.
Get down. Stay there. Maureen, go back and monitor the Specimen.
none of us thought he was going to be such a rough, scary guy, a big tough guy like that. And he freaked us all out. And I don't know how Adam felt about it, but I think Andy's performance really, at that point, brought everyone else's performance up to a certain level, and a level of seriousness, so the movie wouldn't be campy and silly. And, of course, we didn't film that scene until about a third into the production, or maybe half. And so by then, I think from that point on, everyone's performance was heightened to a more serious level, so it would play better and not be silly and campy and just a joke. Because you can look at it on one hand and think, well, this is like a Terminator, parody or something. It's not, and it never was supposed to be. We're not going to shy away from the fact that it is influenced, and it's got a lot of nods to Terminator, as well as another film called Reanimator from the 80s. But I still want it to be its own unique project.
He was a pretty unique guy and liked by everyone, and a great dramatic actor. He did a great job in that movie. I mean, he was intense, and he was very convincing as a mad scientist. No response from the specimen. Maybe the next step, a higher dose may be appropriate. No, I don't remember all of his lines, but...
One of my favorite sequences I've ever put into a movie is in Specimen. It's when the specimen breaks down the door and attacks the boys. I love the way it's in slow motion, even though it's supposed to be a fast, scene. I like the way it's broken down into slow motion, which is another great reason I wanted to re-edit this movie, because I always envisioned this scene to be in slow motion and be sort of dreamlike and a nightmare, horrible thing, and making time slow down. It never could do that the way we used to do editing in the old days. Now that we have digital editing and I can add effects and stuff, the scene finally looks the way I had always intended it to look, and it's one of my favorite scenes I've ever cut together. I love the editing, I love the camera work, I love the performances, I love how the boys are scared, I love how the specimen is quite scary, and he just busts that door down. It's an awesome sequence. Of course, it lasts less than 15 or 20 seconds, but it's one of my favorite scenes.
Jeff, come on.
Oh, that's gonna be great.
Do you want to go in his mouth, too?
Okay.
So, you don't gotta hit the door this time, I don't think. Yeah, we need you to.
We gotta do this whole thing.
I'm over here, so are you going to go right past me?
No, it's
So
as you leave, and I'm
whole
frozen
thing
with
over
fear.
Okay, we'll do the same thing.
Can you
over.
leave?
As soon as I leave, I'll be back
And
there.
when I leave, what? Don't leave until I've gotten up to you and stopped, and then turn around and leave.
Wait, do I back up then and turn around, or
No,
do I
he-
just go?
He just,
Let me get up to you, stop a little bit for a minute or two, and start backing up, same way you did.
but you're going to go all the way.
Stop
You
for a
need
minute.
to.
Fear. Looks like I'm being electrocuted.
Alright, I'll do it again. Says we're gonna do 14.
Only in fat
What's
boys.
the next one?
Oh, in front of boys.
Boys enter upstairs. We've done that.
There it is.
Why don't you get rid of everything in here first before we switch?
He doesn't use location and then continue on location, move on to a new location. He doesn't do that.
Yeah, we could do some more stuff down here.
What?
Look, here's another one. Says come downstairs. He hasn't done yet. We went down the stairs 100 times.
Well, I think in the credits she may have helped. I don't know. She was the phone sex girl in Specimen, if you recall.
Yeah.
What's her famous line? Give me a call and we'll talk. She might have done a dolly cam thing, possibly, where we pushed her really fast and she filmed. I don't remember everything.
Specimen was a fairly confusing shoot because we tried very hard to only shoot the actors that were there. In other words, to not ever have anyone standing around. You know, I would try to schedule it in such a way that people, if you were there, then we would shoot your scene. Like, I wouldn't have Steve just show up and do whatever, although he did help behind the scenes a couple times. But in general, if he was there or if Moline was there, I'd say, we're going to do a scene with you guys. And then when they weren't around, we would just sort of cheat around it and have Adam and Todd act as though they were seeing or talking to someone who wasn't there. So we never had anyone sitting around. And that got confusing because at one point, you know, we had gone up and down the stairs, so many times it felt like. Some running, some walking, you know. And Adam at one point was so sure that we had already done a stair scene that we actually hadn't because it was so confusing. We were up and down all the time. It's a miracle the movie has any kind of continuity at all because we totally shot it in a weird, wacky order. I was, for some reason, almost obsessed with making sure no one was just standing around. You know, I wanted to make sure we kept the enthusiasm going. No one just bored or sitting there going, why am I sitting here? And, you know, we shot the whole film at nighttime. I didn't want people, you know, it's the middle of a college semester and people want to go out and party or even do homework or something. I didn't want people sitting there going, why am I doing this dumb movie? So I made sure I kept everyone moving.
Cut.
That looked real.
I know.
When you said that, I thought, holy shit, I must have released that.
Again, Specimen is one of my favorite films. I hope this DVD allows a lot of the people that never got to see it, you know, I hope they get to enjoy it. I hope a lot of people that did see it and forgot all about it or didn't think much of it will give it a second chance, watch it again, and see how cool it was because it was really well paced and it's got a lot of good editing, good soundtrack, good performances, and I think it's a pretty deserving finale as a final film to my U of A experience. A lot of great things came after Specimen, but I feel it's a really good ending. You know, I think we went out with a bang as far as the U of A college film era of my life.
You know, sometimes, you know, I wish me and Todd would have done a better job. You know, there's some scenes where we're like shaking, like we're afraid, and I think it would have been a little funner if we acted a little more macho, and rather than fleeing, you know, we did more brawling or something. Maybe it would have been harder to create a fight scene, but
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of scenes where the camera's right in Todd's face and he's ready to cry, or we're just running away. And it would have been funner having the monster, you know, attack us, and maybe we could trip him or do a booby trap of something where something falls on his head. It would have been great having the VCR fall on him or something. You know, like throw it. Can you imagine having someone run out of the church and have us throw something from on top of the roof right on his head? Maybe even if it missed by a few feet, but I think that would have been cool. I mean, can you imagine they show one of us on top of the roof throwing the VCR down, and then you see it sort of like crash, and then you have, you know, Steve on the ground with it on top of him or something? I think that would have been pretty cool. But we'll see. Maybe we'll recreate this with our kids as the actors and actresses in the future. I think that's it. I think it was a privilege for all of us to get to work with an aspiring director, and everything was great. The script was wonderful, and you know, I think we would all love to do a remake of it.
I've gotta be me. I've gotta be me.
Get down. Thank you.
Sing your song, Cordy, about the New Yorker. Look up right now. I have a close zoom on your nose. So sit up right now. You'll scare everyone.
Mark, can I just pick up the watch and look at it? Huh? Because I don't have a watch that fit.
No, on you? You can have it on the table and put it up.
Straighten yourself out. Get down there.
Mama, mama, can you see what this doctor's done to me? Mama, mama, can you see what this doctor's done to me? Poked me in the neck and bled. Then you put these glasses on my head.
And for 3 days I've been dead.
And for 3 days I've been dead. With these glasses on my head.
Down to business here.
Whoa.
Back to work.
Down to business right here.
Do the same thing.